Let's open up the OG Mailbag, brought to you by the Butcher's Market. Alongside Joe Giglio, I'm Joe Ovies. We are inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh, thanks to Empire Properties, and of course, thanks to our friends at Copiers Plus. But when we do the OG Mailbag, Joe, it's all about the Butcher's Market. We're doing this before Thanksgiving, so it's not too late for you to run to the Butcher's Market, get some sides, put it in your own Pyrex, and treat it as if you were the one that made these bomb Brussels sprouts. Just saying. The Brussels sprouts are actually pretty money, man. Just saying. So that's what you need to do. Go to thebutchersmarkets.com. You ready to get after it?
Let's do it.
Here's the mail that never fails. Makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, what a whale.
From Tim. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Signed, Chuck. It's that time of the year, Joe.
Is the mailbag going to be like one long Chuck Amato therapy session?
I don't think
this month.
I don't think it's going to be an entire Chuck Amato therapy, but I do feel like we've tapped into some level of nostalgia with Chuck Amato.
Okay. Context
here, because you got to remember that for the old heads, they know exactly what we're talking about when we make a Happy Thanksgiving reference.
Yes.
Okay. But for you youngsters out there, let me explain something to you. Chuck was made for these times. He came along too soon. Can you imagine Chuck Amato in the era of social media, YouTube, TikToks, Reels,
NIL?
Oh my goodness. Showing up to somebody's house in those alligator skin boots, the Harley, that stuff would have crushed on social media, man. Crushed. Anyway, side tangent. So we got to go back to 2006. This is November 20th, 2006. We went back and looked at the Wikipedia for Chuck Amato and that season. Started off with a nice win against App State, 23-10. And then we got the Akron game to follow that. That was the famous 20-17 loss ESPNU game where he decided to use the post game to accuse Akron of using partial qualifiers. And that was the reason why they lost to Akron.
Let me tell you why we lost. I'll tell you people about non-qualifiers.
Yes.
There's a whole lecture.
This is September 9th. And that's when you knew Chuck, who was already under pressure, was gonna lose it. There's a lot of like weird similarities where you can tell the moment it's over. And for Chuck, it was that game. It was the loss, the way he handled it, and of course the rest of the season. They lose at Southern Miss. It looks like they would bounce back with back-to-back top 25 wins against Boston College and Florida State. And then they didn't win a game the rest of the year. Starting October 14th with a run of Wake Forest, at Maryland, at Virginia, at Georgia Tech, at Clemson. Home against Georgia Tech, at Clemson, at North Carolina, closing out the year to ECU. So, November 18th, they lose to North Carolina, 23-9 at Keenan.
So the context there was Carolina had already fired John Bunning and made that announcement actually a few weeks before. And Bunning was playing out the string, Bunning, diehard, Tar Heel, born and bred, the whole 9 yards. And which was bizarre. I still remember. He's the only person who I know has ever attended their own press conference where they were fired.
Yeah,
it was surreal.
Yeah,
it was surreal. It was on like the second floor of the Kenan Stadium. It was weird. It was like this whole makeshift thing, and of course, Dick Bador is like one of the nicest people on the planet. So like he was up there, kind of like being like, man,
it was a different time.
I hate how much of this that worked out this way. John's such a great Tar Heel, and this and that, and so they were a mess. They were 3-9 that year. They stunk, and they get to that game over at Keenan, and Barrington Edwards, has a decent game, but ends up kissing Bunning on the field after they had beaten the Wolf Pack, and God, it was such a weird time. Bunning hated State. He was of that Roy Williams. Played in the 70s era of Carolina when it was, the rivalry was real to everyone, right? God, he hated Chuck. He hated State, the whole thing.
I remember going to a press conference where Bunning was going, oh yeah, when I was a player, we had this rally and we got this chant going, beat Cow College, beat Cow College. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
And I didn't realize how good we had it back then, Joe. When you're in the moment, you don't realize you're living that good life. Bunting and Amato provided, man. they provided.
And going back, Chuck was only on the hot seat because the previous year ended. Thanks to the TA loss, the previous year had ended. They were 7-5 the previous year. It was kind of like, they probably could have been a little. Or in 2004, he had a losing record because of the TA game.
Right.
They come back the next year. They go 7-5. They end that year in classic Chuck fashion. Chuck could do two things. He could beat Florida State, and he could beat a bunch of other bad, shitty teams. And convince everyone, his greatest trick was to convince everyone the devil didn't exist.
Right.
He closes that year with wins over Middle Tennessee State,
right,
Maryland, who we could never beat, but Mario Williams had like 8 fucking sacks in that game. And then they beat South Florida in the Tire Bowl. And somehow he thinks like, oh man, I'm a conquering hero of the world.
Let's go.
So then they come back the next year and he starts getting himself in trouble with the Akron. And then all of the losses, of course, they beat Boston College in a night game that had convinced Tom O'Brien eventually to take that job.
It's like, I like it
because of the environment from that night game at Carter-Finley, or soon to be no longer Carter-Finley Stadium.
We'll get to that.
It's wild though. I was looking at this 06, who they lost to. Well, first of all, for my App State people, this is why I will forever consider you somewhat fraudulent. Just so you know, that was one of your triple national champion years.
Yeah,
06.
I remember there was a lot of hype.
You came to Carter-Finley and you got your shit packed.
They were I distinctly remember going to that game and walking into the parking lots, and App State fans were feeling good.
Yeah,
they were feeling, as you like to say, froggy.
Yeah,
feeling a little froggy going into that game. And yes, I rember it
by a 3-9 state team.
Yes,
okay,
and I remember that game being a punishing game.
Yes,
an absolute punishing game.
State played well defensively in that game, you could say. But you look at these other games, they beat a Boston College team that went 10-3. They lost to a Southern Miss team that went 9-5. Wake was 11-3 ACC champions that year. Maryland 9-4, GT 9-5, Clemp 8-5. Arguably their worst loss was to Carolina, who was 3-9. And so they lose this game. And at that point, Chuck had run out of allies. Every year, it was the wheel of excuses. Every year, it was, I lost Norm Chow. Well, I need a different offensive coordinator. Well, I need a different defensive coordinator. Well,
partial qualifiers.
Well, if I had my quarterback after I lost my 4 defense, and it was like, no, you were never like, it's so that argument is so disingenuous. If we had just redshirted Phillip Rivers, he would have been here with the number 1 defense. Think about that. No, you never were ever going to redshirt Phillip Rivers. That was never an option.
Yeah.
Okay. So everything was just a big ball of excuses. He created this racquetball. He created a handball court underneath the Murphy Center so that to this day, their locker room is on the upper floor instead of it being useful during games. So they still actually have to go to the other end of the field after this, $20 million Murphy Center project.
He wasn't going anywhere, man.
Rendered the locker room useless.
No, he wasn't going anywhere. Chuck for life, baby. The man had his own restaurant. He had his own licensed restaurant, Chuckums. Come on now. He wasn't going anywhere. He was going to be NC State's Bobby Bowden.
And then it flooded. The handball court flooded.
Yeah.
It was just like one thing after another that he ultimately you and I fall on different sides of Chuck, but ultimately he ran out of allies.
Yeah.
And losing that game to that craptastic Carolina team. And it was the second time he had lost. It was the third time he lost to Bunning because Bunning beat Rivers once.
Yes.
So it was just kind of like, what are we doing here?
So all that's the history. All that's the context. If there's one thing for you youngsters out there, we want to help you understand why people are the way that they are about these programs, why the old heads talk about the way they talk about these things. We just want to give you a little bit of history context so you understand what's going on. We just want you to learn a little bit, okay? Because, man, there is some deep history of mid between NC State and North Carolina. I feel this is an appropriate week to talk about it too, with Mac Brown being told, you can retire after. I don't want to. Well, then we're just going to make the decision for you. End of discussion. And obviously, we understand where things are with Dave Dorn. So back to 2006, November 20th, press conference at the Murphy Center. I was there for this one. I distinctly remember the surreal moment that this happened. Annabelle Myers, who has been the longtime football SID, makes it abundantly clear to the assembled media, hey, Chuck ain't talking about his job. Okay. Because,
Okay.
I mean, remember, it was like a fever pitch. He's done. The losing streak, losing to Carolina. Man, you lose to ECU this week. It's over, right? So
ECU at home in Raleigh.
So Annabelle's like, nah, he ain't answering questions about this, right? So it got a little frosty because people were trying to find ways to ask about his job without asking about his job. And at the end of the press conference, he was mad. Annabelle like raps. I remember distinctly, if I'm having a Mandela effect here, apologies. But I remember Annabelle basically being like, yeah, it's a wrap. So the question before this Happy Thanksgiving thing happened, I had to go, I cannot find the audio. I only have the audio of the Happy Thanksgiving because I'm a hoarder.
Yeah.
And I have that clip. I've always had that clip. So I go back to a James Henderson recap Q&A. James Henderson, who was at Pack Pride back in the day.
Yes.
He's at Inside Pack Sports now. So the question that got to the Happy Thanksgiving part was, besides winning close games, what else needs to change? He goes, well, that helps things considerably. And there are things that need to get fixed. Maybe get fixed is the wrong word, but have to improve. You know them. I know them. I don't have to tell you that. You know them and I know them. They are stats. It can be fixed. Follow-up question. Coach, you talked about some of the things that need to be changed to get some close wins. What do you say to the people who feel that there needs to be a change? And that's when things wrapped. That was I told you I wasn't talking about my job. So Chuck decides to go out like this. I think you've been told about that. And then this.
Happy Thanksgiving. All right? I won't leave this room without, I'm not gonna leave here with a frown. And I know some of you don't like the smile. Happy Thanksgiving. And we'll weigh you on Thursday night.
And out he goes. Off he goes.
That was it. Because I don't think he had a press conference after the ECU game.
ECU, he got fired. That was that.
Oh, what a walk-off. And of course, he comes back as an assistant for Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And, asked about, what he thought his legacy was. And one of my favorite. I mean, there's so many.
There's so many.
One of my favorites was, open your eyes. I built this place. Meaning the renovations and the upgrades at Carter-Finley, or soon to be not Carter-Finley Stadium. Let's call it Chuck Amato Stadium. Philip Rivers Stadium.
Maybe. Speaking of Carter-Finley Stadium.
You've got mail.
All right, let's go to the OG sports phone for the next
919-444-2211. Call the OG sports phone and curse or don't.
All right, this came to us from, I believe, a 919 number.
So first, let me say that I am a Dallas resident, but I'm an NC State graduate, and now I don't know what went on with Chuck Amato. That was a little bit before my time. Tom O'Brien was just more of a cooling period. I don't know what that was. I don't know why the hell you think letting go of Russell Wilson was a great idea, but that just goes to show you sometimes when people become NC State football coaches, sometimes they lose their mind and they forget how to coach football. So I'm assuming maybe we need to change the lower bowl in Carter-Finley. Maybe we need to paint that red, or maybe we need to paint it black or white, because right now it's in the gray, right? And we've been in the gray for too many years. So if somebody can just get the program out of the gray, right, and so we can just cross that threshold, right, get another championship that we haven't had since the 70s. Let's just cross that threshold. So tell Boo, tell whoever it is, just tell them, change the paint. Simple as that. We can move on. We have a great college of design. I graduated from it, so I know for a fact someone can find a different color than gray. It's probably depressing, and it probably confuses the coaches, and they lose their Madden playbooks. So that's my last lifesaver for Dave, is that we change the paint, because that's the only thing that's probably going to change at this moment. No offensive coordinator is going to change that. We've had Dave.
It's the paint, Joe. It's the paint. That's the reason why.
Interestingly enough, Carter-Finley Stadium opened in 1966. Those bleachers have been there since the benches.
The benches, yeah.
It's a bleacher, right? Debbie, when Carolina, I think it was 1920, Carolina went from their bleachers to seats, but it reduced the capacity. Carolina had the ability to do that because their season ticket numbers weren't the same as NC State's.
Sure.
Particularly in that lower level. So when Debbie, at the time, AD, had looked into turning the lower level into all seats, they couldn't do it because it would cost them too many seats. They would lose too many seats because the benches are built for relatively skinny people of 1966.
Those people don't exist anymore.
Not our fat asses of 2024.
No.
So she tried. Again, I feel like every week the mailbag is Debbie tried.
There's a lot of momentum. That she has to overcome, but she tried.
I would love for them to figure something out on that front because I do love the two end zones that do actually have the seat packs, the red seats in both end zones now.
Well, you're going to have to get used to not calling it Carter-Finley Stadium because NC State released information that they are now exploring the possibility of selling the naming rights to Carter-Finley Stadium. I mean, look, with the upcoming House settlement, you have to find ways to generate revenue. And this is not directly, NIL related, but nobody knows what the budgets are really going to look like. Nobody really knows how the budgets are going to be affected. So now there's this mad dash to try to generate as much money as possible. The mask is off, so to speak. We all know what this is about. It's a money-making endeavor. And with the money that is going to be shared, the revenue that will be shared with not just the back pay, but for current athletes, right? Where are you going to get that money from? You've seen this implemented in different ways, like Tennessee, the talent fee, right?
Yeah, NC State's doing something similar with their tickets and their parking
right? So this naming rights opportunity goes right into that wheelhouse, similar to the Smith Center. Long a holdout on selling alcohol because of Dean Smith is getting away from that because they have to find ways to generate revenue. It's why gambling, which was illegal in the state, everybody was trying to fast track it as soon as possible because it was generation of revenue for not just the Hurricanes or the Panthers, but the universities were going to get a cut of that too.
Probably makes the most sense to sell it to a DraftKings or another competitor.
I'd be curious to see if that actually happens, or they just don't do something with Lenovo, where not only do you have the Lenovo Center, but it actually ends up becoming some sort of Lenovo Park.
Combo platter.
Yeah. Some sort of, like the Meadowlands, right? Well, Carter-Finley kind of is our little version of the Meadowlands.
Absolutely.
Here in the Triangle. So why wouldn't you call it something like Lenovo Park Sports Complex or whatever it is that has the center and it has the stadium? You can still call it Carter-Finley Field at Lenovo Park or something like that. That's probably where we're headed on something like this.
I mean, it's interesting they made the announcement without having a home. It's a little bit of a...
We're open for business.
Some whoring going on.
I mean, we do that. We let people know, hey, look, if you want to advertise on this podcast, by all means, let us know. I think they're just kind of doing the same thing. Are they not? Isn't that what they're kind of doing, right?
Man, no medical school, no law school.
Right.
Sometimes it hurts.
Next.
Hey guys, this is Ben from Durham. Just going to call about the Hurricanes. I know you're probably going to get a bunch of calls about the college football this weekend, but I figured in the sea of those, I'd give you a Hurricanes call. And actually, I'm going to use you as Hurricanes therapy for a little bit here. So, Pyotr Kochetkov, we know he has a bad case of wanderlust. And in the past, he's turned the puck over, it's led to goals. He's iced the puck, which has led to plays in our defensive zone that have led to goals. And now tonight, his wanderlust got him hurt. He did not need to go out and try to make that poke check in overtime. Walker had his man covered, and he's injured as a result of it. Looks like concussed pretty good. I hate that it happened. I hate that it was kind of self-inflicted. But if this in the future teaches him to not, stay home a little more, I think that will be a net benefit in the long run. I'm only hoping he's not out too long because I think we don't have any starting caliber goaltenders on our roster right now. Martin has shown flashes, but not enough consistency, I don't think. I don't know. Curious to hear your thoughts. I just want the kid to tend goal more and not get himself into situations like he got in tonight. Thanks.
So We talked about this a little bit with Luke DeCock of the News and Observer yesterday. I've made my opinions very well known that the Canes should probably just ride this out with Spencer Martin. They lost they beat Dallas, and the goals that went in weren't necessarily all on Spencer Martin. There was some sloppy play in front. So I've made that opinion known. The part that I found interesting, Joe, is, and Luke brought this up too, and the collar highlights the aggressive play of Pyotr Kochetkov. It's something that Trip Tracy brought up. Him and Mike Menoskauka were talking about Kochetkov and what had happened over the weekend in Columbus. And I thought it was interesting the way that Trip, that's his wheelhouse, talked about the pros and the cons of Kochetkov's aggressiveness, coming out, knowing, basically learning at some point when to use that aggressiveness to your advantage and when to understand that you're putting yourself in a bad situation, essentially putting yourself out there, not having the awareness of where Walker was, and then having that collision that resulted in the concussion. I'm of the opinion that you take the good with the bad of Pyotr, and you hope that when it comes to playoff time, given the opportunity, that aggressiveness pays off for the Carolina Hurricanes. Because you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting the same results. And with Kochetkov, there's a variance there, but I like the potential of the ceiling with Kochetkov when he's locked in that comes along with that aggressiveness that has helped them to get to this point.
Yeah, they need to figure out what their options are.
Yeah.
And I know with Eric Tulsky, they're doing that. I mean, there's no doubt that's what they're doing. But can you really get through 3 months without Anderson? And that's exacerbated by the chances that Kochetkov will always take. Like, you're not going to be able to get that out of him. You're not going to be able to shake that out of him. That's who he is. Kind of what makes him the player that he is as well. Ultimately, though, I do think the only way for him to reach his potential is to play more.
Yes.
You know, he had those hiccups and spurts last year. He recovered really nicely in spring last year. I mean, he was bad in December. He was bad. I mean, he had some bad games, December, January, and he was able to recover from them, which was a testament to him. But you still want to see more consistency out of him. The only way to do that, though, is for him to be on the ice.
All right, let's go back to the mailbag, shall we? This comes to us from Paul. Hey, guys. Well, Mac Brown 2.0 has officially reached its inevitable conclusion. God knows what Bubba is going to do. Let's get weird. Hypothetical here. Not saying I want this to happen or it will happen. Just a mental exercise for y'all. If Bubba were to offer Manny Diaz the UNC job, do you think he would take it and complete the triangle coaching trifecta? Touch them all, Manny. You did it. Defensive coordinator at NC State, head coach at Duke, and now you get to take over the North Carolina program.
That would be wild.
That would be hilarious.
That's not where I thought this was going.
No.
I think Carolina has a plan. I'm going to assume they do. So we'll see how that plan manifests itself.
Well,
I think Carolina probably can get somebody better than NC State fans think.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
I think
I agree.
NC State fans hate it when Carolina tell them, well, who you going to get? Which is like the dumbest argument, right?
Well, North Carolina is going to.
With Carolina, I could see them taking a swing because you can't get those boosters to sign off.
No.
Without you being like, hey, all right, here's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is the decision that we're going to make. And, you know, there's no Mac, there's no Carolina connection. There's no former Mac player. You know, I thought maybe they wanted that to be Dre Bly.
Yeah, obviously, you were all about the Dre Bly thing.
Obviously, it didn't work out that way for them. So there's no like obvious in-house. There's no obvious connection to their past. You know, once upon a time, the coach at Cincinnati now, you know, he's from essentially from Hillsboro.
Yeah.
Right next to Chapel Hill.
Satterfield was the coach I actually wanted North Carolina to hire when they hired Mac Brown.
Agree. But that was a recruiting thing. Now you've taken the recruiting thing out of it, and it's more of like who can handle roster management, the portal, NIL, and get people. How do you maximize Mac's strength, which was enthusiasm, interest in the program, and combine that with some of the coaching acumen that's been missing?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I say you swing for the fences and you go get Urban Meyer. I'm kidding.
I know you are, but that's not something Bubba Cunningham would do. The swinging for the fences to me is Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln Riley,
former ECU offensive coordinator, has struggled at USC in the sense that it hasn't been the champagne and roses that he thought it was going to be when he took that job and took Caleb Williams with him
I think the most
from Oklahoma.
I think the most interesting one would be Drinkwitz. You brought this up
Eli
on the podcast
Drinkwitz
yesterday.
would add the super spice because that's someone that State fans, anytime they hear, well, who you going to get? They say, well, what about the guy at Mizzou who was our OC for 3 years?
And North Carolina has the money to try to pry him away.
And, quite frankly, Drink has done well at Mizzou, but
you're going to be slamming your head into the wall at Missouri, man.
You've peaked.
Yeah, man.
You won 11 last year.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable at Missouri.
And that's one thing I give Eli Drinkwitz a lot of credit for. He knows
that. He knows how to play the game.
He knows how to play the game. He knows to get the job, to get to the next job, which is what App State was.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's the thing that I'd be curious to see if that would come to fruition. I'm on the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. I do not see anything related to coaching search odds. I can't get that on DraftKings. That's fine. No big deal, because you can get all sorts of other stuff on DraftKings, including some holiday shopping, if you will, picking up some touchdowns. That's what it's all about. It's on sale right now at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Just download the app. They got doorbuster profit boosts, bet one, get one promotions on all types of touchdown bets, which is honestly, when you're just kind of chilling on the couch, waiting for the meal, watching football, now's the time to do it and use that promo code OG24. I was looking at the North Carolina NC State game. I was looking at the quick single game parlays of the plus 1,000 variety. They only have one at plus 1,100. NC State money line, North Carolina money line for the first quarter, and over 55.5. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a $5 gang special. I'm going to win $60 this weekend. You're shaking your head. What are you talking about?
For NC State to win?
Yeah, NC State's going to win this game.
No.
Oh, come on. Come on. All emotional and all that stuff with Mac. Dave Doran does not want to lose this game.
They got their clunker out of the way last week.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I kind of like NC State in this one. But you know what? This is all the beauty of the disagreement. And when you get to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, all you got to do is use that promo code from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use that promo code OG24 to opt in. That's code OG24 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-787. I screwed it up. I'll try it again. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. One bonus bet per customer based on amount of initial touchdown bet and expires 168 hours after issuance. One single-use boost per customer that only applies to the winnings. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos for additional terms and responsible gaming resources. That is going to wrap it up for the free portion of the OG mailbag. If you want to catch the rest, then go to ogtrianglemedia.com. Sign up to be an OG fan subscriber today. $13 a month. You can save money if you buy for the year. We appreciate your support as being a part of OG fans. Again, that's ogtrianglemedia.com.